details.
Thank you for calling the Browns Emotional Support Line. Press 1 if you're blaming the refs. Press 2 if you're blaming the quarterback. Press 3 if you're blaming the head coach. Don't worry, we've got you. 1410 Wing AM, the only station where it's safe to scream into your radio.
All right, everybody, we welcome you in live here on a Wednesday, the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. Jason Fitz from Yahoo Sports. He's going to join us coming up here around the corner. We'll talk all things college football. I want to open up with college football. I've had fun at the expense of Notre Dame all week. I've had fun. I think that what they have done is they've looked like complete fools this entire week. And I can sympathize with any program that misses the playoff. Ohio State's missed the playoff on a few occasions. Some years I didn't argue it. They didn't deserve to be in. Other years, like 2018, that was that one loss Ohio State team that they lost to Purdue. I'm not going to play dumb and act like that's not a big deal. But, they put up 60-plus points on Michigan. They dominated every one of their non-con opponents. They dominated the Big Ten, but they got left out. And it is what it is. But, they let an Oklahoma team in that year that was giving up 45 points per game. That was the Baker Mayfield Oklahoma team back in the day. But, I get it. There are times where it's frustrating when your team misses it. But for them to act the way that they did, it's ridiculous at the end of the day. So I started thinking, okay, what teams, where would you rank them where would you rank Notre Dame's absence from this year's playoff? They believe that they've been screwed over by the College Football Playoff Committee. I guess what I'm curious is, where would you rank their absence from the playoff amongst the biggest screw jobs in the history of the College Football Playoff? Do you think that they got screwed over, I guess, is the other big question. I don't. So I put together a list of, to me, the top 5 screw jobs in the history of college football when it comes to the College Football Playoffs. Which programs in the history of the playoff got screwed over by the committee the most in the history of the playoff, dating all the way back to 2014? All right, so I put a list together for those watching live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. There you have it. The top 5 college football playoff screw jobs in the history of the playoff. I'll start at number 5. I mentioned it already. Okay, I mentioned it already. Ohio State back in 2018. Okay, Ohio State in 2018. Look, you lose to Purdue. I get it, but they had a top 5 roster, a Heisman level quarterback. All right, obviously they had just absolutely throttled Michigan that year. But one bad trip to Purdue, and suddenly they became unworthy of making the college football playoffs. Yes, I had a huge problem with that. All right, they were a one-loss Power 5 champion. They had Dwayne Haskins, who threw for over 50-plus touchdowns. They beat Michigan 62-39. Their only loss, a bizarre collapse at Purdue. Oklahoma got in that season because the committee trusted their offense more, even though Ohio State had the better resume on paper. Frustrating. Nonetheless, had the playoff been at 6 or 8 teams, no one's leaving that Ohio State team out. I thought that Ohio State team got screwed over more than this year's Notre Dame team, no doubt about it. Coming in at number 4 on my list, the 2016 Penn State Nittany Lions. Okay, we make so much about the head-to-heads in college football. All right, but the thing of it is, how about Penn State this season? All right, they were the Big Ten champion. They were the Big Ten champion. They won the Big Ten championship over Wisconsin. They beat Ohio State that year. Penn State beat Ohio State that year. And yet, Ohio State still got into the playoff instead of the team that beat them and actually won their conference. Don't you think that Penn State had a bigger gripe? They're in a conference. They beat Ohio State, and the team that they beat, who didn't even make it to their conference championship, got in, and they didn't, and they were the conference champions. To me, that's a problem. Penn State checked off every box imaginable. They checked off every box that the committee said that it values. They were a conference champion. They had the head-to-head win over the team that represented the Big Ten in the playoffs. Multiple ranked wins. But we all know how that all went about. 2016 Penn State Nittany Lions, I put there at the top of the list. Number 3 on my list, again, we're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. I'm going to put the 2014 Baylor Bears right there. I'm putting Baylor at number 3 on my list. When you think about Baylor that season, Okay, they beat TCU. Everyone believes that, everyone talking about TCU. It wasn't just TCU that got screwed over. Baylor did as well. Baylor was 11-1. Baylor beat TCU in their head-to-head, finished with the same record, and they did lose a close game early at West Virginia, but the Big 12 did not have a champion. Okay, they didn't name a champion back then, so the committee knocked them for not having one. All right, if head-to-head matters, Baylor should have been in over TCU, who many believe TCU was the biggest screw job of that. Some say it's Baylor. I agree with that. I put Baylor up on that list as well, especially if dominance matters. TCU should have been in too, but they both got boxed out because the Big 12 did not have a conference championship game that season. At number 2 on my list, same scenario, just the other team, TCU. And this is what Notre Dame fans are upset about, because Notre Dame fans were upset that their team was ranked in the playoff rankings every week. They were ranked in the second to last playoff rankings. They didn't play at all and somehow knocked back 3 spots. Well, you think that's bad. How about TCU? TCU entered the final weekend ranked as the number 3 team in the country. They were the number 3 team in the country. The very final game of the regular season, they destroyed Iowa State 55-3. After winning by 52 points, the committee still dropped them from number 3, not to 4, not to 5, all the way to 6. The committee all of a suddenly emphasized conference championships, pushing Ohio State above them after Ohio State's 59-0 win in the Big Ten championship game against Wisconsin. But the standard literally changed after TCU had already played and after they dismantled their opponent as well. Now, TCU, they got the second biggest screw job in the history of the College Football Playoff Committee when it's all said and done. And then one that I don't think many people will disagree with, the team that got screwed over the most in the history of the College Football Playoffs, it has to be the 2023 Florida State Seminoles. 13-0, ACC champion. They were an undefeated, at the time, a Power 5 champion. In their non-conference, they beat LSU. They beat Florida. They won the ACC title with a third-string quarterback after Jordan Travis was injured. That sounds like a great storyline, but it wasn't enough of a storyline to convince the committee that they deserved to be in, because somehow, some way, an undefeated Power 5 champion with wins over LSU and Florida in the non-con wasn't good enough. The committee essentially said your quarterback is hurt, so we assume that you're not going to compete with these other top 4 teams. And they had never done anything like that before, nor was there ever precedent for us to expect that they were actually going to pull the trigger on that. To me, they were the number 1 most screwed team ever in the history of the college football playoff. So there you go. My top 5 college football playoff screw jobs in the history of the college football playoff. Number 5, 2018 Ohio State. 2016 Penn State. Big Ten champions. They beat Ohio State, and somehow Ohio State made the playoffs that year, and Penn State didn't. I mean, I think maybe Penn State should be a little bit higher on that list, to be quite honest with you. 2014 Baylor and 2014 TCU. I should have just combined them into one, to be honest with you. But both penalized for not playing in a conference that had a conference championship. They kind of thumped the Big 12 that year. Well, the Big 12 ultimately gets a conference championship because the committee kept Baylor and TCU out because they needed a conference championship. And then they would go on to screw over teams like Penn State, who win a conference championship, beat the team that they ultimately put in, who didn't even make it to the conference championship game. Didn't make any sense. Florida State, number 1 on my list from 2023. Not only did they win the ACC conference championship, but they were undefeated. What more can you want? An undefeated Power 5 conference champion. It was Power 5 at the time. Yeah. So as I sit back and I listen to all the complaining from Notre Dame this week, you could be upset. You could be angry. But there is not one tiny part of me that actually feels sorry for you or your fans, because I don't think that their absence from the playoff even comes close to tickling this list. It doesn't come close. They're not screwed over. You could sit there and say, well, the committee had them at 9 and all of a sudden they got knocked out. Imagine being TCU. You're ranked number 3 in the second to last college football playoff rankings. You dismantle your final opponent by 60 points. And they not only do they knock you out, you went from 3 to 6. Guys, stop. Notre Dame, you're not a victim. You're a bunch of crybabies. You're a bunch of bums. Get in a conference. That's all I got to say. We're going to talk about this with Jason Fitz from Yahoo Sports coming up next. The Justin Kinder Show. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Top 5 college football playoff screw jobs. What do you think of this list? We'll put it on the Facebook page so you can weigh on it as well. But I am curious: is there a team that I'm forgetting on here? Would you put would you put Notre Dame on this list? I just can't stomach it. I think that there were many more teams throughout the history of this playoff that got screwed. I would not put Notre Dame in that conversation. Check out the list. Let me know what you think. We'll be joined by Jason Fitz when we come back. All right, everybody, we welcome you back. Justin Kinner with you here. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. We opened up the show. We kind of created our own list, the top 5 college football playoff screw job list. I mean, you remember the Vince McMahon, Bret Hart, Brett screwed Brett. Well, who screwed who? Did Notre Dame screw Notre Dame in this situation? I mean, that's the fun we've been having with all of this, of course. But hey, I was wrong. I thought when we got out of the 4-team college football playoff era that nobody would care. Are we going to be as passionate about the 9, 10, 11, and 12s as we are about the 5 missing out on the 4? Well, I guess I was wrong, and I guess a lot of people are wrong because this seems to be as passionate and as drama-filled as what it was when the 14 playoff era was here. And joining us now to talk about that, as well as our Bengals and Browns and NFL and all the other top headlines in sports, our friend Jason Fitz from Yahoo Sports. Jason, welcome in, sir. How are you?
I'm great, and look, I think you're right. For right now, everybody's as passionate, but it has to do with the how that all this went down, right? Like, because we've got 2 group of 5 teams in that clearly aren't 12 of the best teams in the country. Like, I've never really loved, like, my long since hill that I'm dying on that nobody cares about is I want 12 best. I don't care if they all come to the Big Ten. I don't care if they all come to the SEC. I just want 12 best. If we're going to force automatic qualifiers, then I want some sort of qualifier for that automatic to be in. So there was never a world where I wanted the ACC champion or these group of 5 teams in because they don't belong. So I think part of why everybody's screaming so loud this year is that because it's just who got in versus who was left out that people are going to have a problem with.
Yeah, and you and I were talking a little before we went live today, but it seems like it's not that Notre Dame got left out. It's how they got left out that seems to be what irks a good pocket of Notre Dame supporters, or in this particular situation. That the problem I have, and look, you used to work at ESPN, you know how that whole ordeal worked with the build-up, the show, 4 weeks out, everyone tuning in. I feel like, I don't know the last time I tuned in to watch that show. I used to care when it was 4 teams. I don't care now because it is what it is what it is. I feel like that show, and maybe not so much the show, but just the fact that they put out the rankings weeks in advance, starting in October, that seems to be the bigger problem here. If that ranking show or the rankings coming out a month and some change in advance and the build up to the final selection Sunday, if that gets wiped out, is there as much drama? Is this as much of a big talking point as what it's turned into?
Not at all. And look, in fairness, full disclosure, I hosted the digital version of that show every year I was at ESPN. So right after Reese interviewed the committee chair, I got him. It was me and Mike Golick Jr. and Christine Williamson. So we hosted that show together for years. And we often joked when we came into it, how we're going to make this interesting. Like, we know who the top 4 teams are going to be, right? But the problem, to your point, is that we get these rankings early. And, the Notre Dame mishap to me is, I've done the mock committee. I've gone into the Gaylord Texan where you vote on a previous year. And the way they do this is they take groups of 3s. So they vote on 1 through 3, and then they figure out how to rank them. Then the next thing they do is they vote on 4 through 7, and they figure out how to rank them. Then they directly compare 3 and 4. So they go back and they the top and the bottom. That's how they do it in all these little chunks. And I think that's what Yurchek was trying to explain to the world very poorly when he said that Miami and Notre Dame hadn't been head-to-head. They hadn't really had to have a conversation about Miami and Notre Dame in the same conversation. But it feels dirty and gross to have had Miami below Notre Dame all of this time. And then because there's one team in a slightly different spot, now all of a sudden you say, well, we never really talked about him at the same time. It's the process. And to your point, you could just get rid of the show and then none of us would know that. Here's my only one pushback. For everybody that's listening to this that loves college football, think about how often when you turn on ESPN in the middle of the day, if you turn on Get Up, you turn on First Take, for the last month, they've been arguing about this, the college football playoff rankings on Tuesday and Wednesday. The rankings give non-college football playoff platforms a reason to talk about the sport. So as Pat McAfee has said many times on his show, we'd love to talk more college football, but the numbers show people don't listen to it. Like, I got to say that loud enough for everyone. Like, if you don't have an ESPN broadcast of the college football playoff on a Tuesday night, there is literally no reason that they are going to talk about the sport on Tuesday or Wednesday, because I've hosted College Football Live for the network. The numbers on Tuesdays and Wednesdays aren't very good, right? So that is part of the downfall. If you get rid of the rankings, you get rid of a month worth of buildup to this thing and a month worth of conversation and growth for the sport.
Yeah, and that's funny. I'm not comparing what we do in Dayton to the national scale of which where you work and where you worked at ESPN, but you would think our local book here for fourth quarter is always, and I'm always amazed by this because it's football season. You would think that would be your biggest book. Our book always takes a hit around this time because we used to be so Ohio State centric. We don't talk Ohio State as much as we used to. Now, we're not going to talk about Ohio State versus Grambling State. We're not going to talk about keys to the game, the drama. So we really didn't talk a whole lot of Ohio State this year, as crazy as that sounds. There wasn't a lot of ups and downs, but we used to force feed it, and the numbers showed that. Now we lean more NFL and college basketball because we have Dayton here and Wright State and others. So the numbers reflect that that's what our viewers and listeners want to talk about. So it is interesting you bring that up, that college football doesn't technically move the needle as much as what you would think, but you do need to kind of have that realm in there to a certain capacity. So
they say all the time, second most popular sport in America. By eyeballs, yes. But by sports talk radio metrics,
no.
All day, every day, it is not, unfortunately. I wish it was, as much as I cover it and much as I love it, I wish it was, but it just isn't.
But if it bleeds, it leads in every medium. It's true, as with that phrase, as far as it goes. And right now, the drama with Notre Dame, we've talked college football all week, but it hasn't been about the matchups. In fact, I have, for those watching on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page right now, these are the matchups. I don't even think we've broken down. Oh man, what happens if Ohio State runs into Texas A&M or Miami, Indiana? Could we set up? We haven't even talked about that. We're talking about the drama with Notre Dame being left out. I got to be honest. If Notre Dame would have made it, I wouldn't have cared. I wouldn't be passionate like they have no business being in. Them being left out still doesn't bother me. I don't think that they had any top quality wins. USC wins not bad, but the two good teams they did play, they lost. No conference championship, all the low-hanging fruit. To me, the biggest problem I had with all of it is the way that they handled it. I'm not a fan of them opting out of the bowl game. Their athletic director just seems to be going on any show possible to continue on what many deem as throwing a temper tantrum at this point. Where are you with how Notre Dame and the fallout of this has kind of handled it and navigated through it?
Well, bowl games for Notre Dame are going to be a little bit lose-lose this year, right? Like, yes, the argument here is the kids will get the experience. I think there is weight to that. I once told Mike Golick Jr., I don't think bowl games matter. And he said, I had teammates that had never left the state before. So to them, it really mattered to be able to go in a bowl game. Like, if you don't like it, don't watch it. That's fine. I also see where Notre Dame turns around and says, great. So if we go in and we play uninspired in a bowl game, people will just use that as a narrative of why we didn't belong in the playoffs in the first place. So it's sort of lose-lose. I don't love the precedent it sets. I will remind everybody, and I think we've talked about this before, when we talk about success of bowl games don't have to do great numbers. They just have to do better numbers than whatever First Take or Sports Center repeat they'd be running in the middle of December, right? Notre Dame would have certainly done that in a key bowl. So I think it's a bummer that we don't, like, I'm excited for Vandy, Iowa, because Vandy had a great year, and this is a chance for people to check out Vandy. I'm excited for big brands and bowl games because I like college football. So I'm bummed about that. I think this Notre Dame reaction, though, is it's interesting, particularly because they've also now revealed that contractually this can't happen again. Like, contractually, if they finish in the top 12, they are guaranteed a playoff spot after this year. So I cannot believe that the powers that be have agreed to that, but this is the one time you're doing this. So if this is the one time it's going to happen to you and you already know that you have writing in place that will prevent it in future years, calm down and go play a bowl game. I agree with you on that.
Why do those provisions exist, by the way? Because I'm not a fan of that either. I don't think anyone is. I mean, I guess if your team benefits from that, great. And look, if you're ranked in the top 12, the chances of you being left out are pretty slim. And I know that sounds crazy because look at this particular situation, but a lot of things had to play out right. Like, they could have lost one of those two, still would have been ranked at probably 8th. I mean, the bottom line is you're not going to be left out more often than not. You're going to be left out like this. I don't like these provisions. I don't even get why, as you said, the powers that be would agree to them to begin with. And I'm sure other teams knew, programs knew, but if they didn't know and they know that Notre Dame has that provision, you bet your ass Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, and the other powers and the other power schools, they're in there trying to get that provision put in their contract as well. And at this point, forget the committee, forget having to, having to make the playoff. Everyone's just going to be in the playoff, and none of this just makes any sense now.
Right, and that's the hardest part about it because you're 1,000% right. And you can't tell me Texas isn't looking around saying, fine, we want the same exact thing here. And I realize, this is all done to keep Notre Dame football happy in the concept of whatever the playoff was going to look like. But ultimately, at what cost, right? You have to keep the SEC happy. You have to keep the Big Ten happy. Everybody knows that. If Notre Dame is not happy, I guess my question is, then what? Like the SEC and the Big Ten can go off and start their own thing. Like Notre Dame can't do that. There's only one of them. So they're negotiating by themselves from a position of power, and that makes no sense to me.
Ohio State, last we talked, we were preparing for Michigan. They beat Michigan. Then they set up the 1 versus 2 in the Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis, of course, at Lucas Oil. And Indiana, to their credit, I'm so crazy about Kurt Signetti. I think the guy's a whack job, but I think he's great for college football. He's a character. College football needs more characters, especially with the guys like Nick Saban and others who have departed, and Urban that have departed the sport. It's crazy, though, because they've beaten Michigan. They've beaten Ohio State now. They've beaten Penn State. They beat Oregon. And people are still doing this. Yeah, but I don't know if I'm sold yet. Where are you with Indiana? Big Ten champions, undefeated, the number 1 team in the country. This is crazy at this point.
Yeah, for me, I sat down in the corner of my couch for the Big Ten championship game, put my warm blanket on, sat there with the Christmas lights, and I remember very distinctly looking at the TV and saying, all right, prove it to me. And that's, right as the game was kicking off, and Mendoza gets knocked out in the very beginning, and I thought, well, there we're done. And the fact, that he came back into that game and then played the way he played, the number of times that he had what I think is the best defense we've seen in years in college football in Ohio State, just barreling down his face over and over and over again. And he stood in to make tough throws. He made plays off schedule. Like Fernando Mendoza just absolutely proved something to me. And the entire Indiana team did. Like they play with a violence that I don't think they get a lot of credit for. Defensively swarming to the football. Like I thought it was a great game. And I thought Indiana was clearly the better team. And this isn't one of those moments where you can turn around and say, yeah, but there was nothing on the line. They weren't. No, I thought both teams were playing their tails off and Indiana won. So I feel like I've been yelling from the mountaintops that we're sleeping on the number 1 team in the country most of the year in Ohio State. Indiana just beat them. So I think we're sleeping on both of them. That 1v2 matchup should have been the most hyped college. Like, it's a disgrace that game day wasn't there. It's a disgrace that it was. If that had been Alabama, Georgia, it'd have been the only thing anybody talked about all week. It's a disgrace that it wasn't, but also it's gross to me that we haven't made enough of the winner from it since then, because nobody's talking about Indiana. If not now, then when? So am I going to put my money on Indiana to win the national championship? This year, it's so up in the air. It's why I could see any of the top 4. I don't think Oregon can win it. Maybe any of the top 4 or 5 teams winning. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Indiana won it. I just wonder what it's going to take for Indiana to get some street cred in this. I think it's going to take a first-round win over a team like Alabama, and then even at that, people are going to say, well, it's a down year for the Tide. Like, people are just finding a reason not to believe in Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, and I've been getting onto Buckeye fans, too, for doing the same thing of, well, and I rolled my eyes at this. They almost lost their, and this sounds like I'm discrediting this person, but we almost lost our wide receivers coach, and we were distracted throughout the week. Stop it. Like, come on. I can't get on board with that. Like, Indiana, did Ohio State play their best game? No, but Indiana played a role in them not playing their best game as far as that goes. And look, 16 straight wins with some phenomenal wins along the way, including a national championship. You were going to lose at some point. Might as well shake it off. Remember, Ohio State lost last year 13-10 in the final game before the playoff, and that worked out pretty well. And ironically enough, the final game before the playoff, they lose 13-10. We'll see what happens, but you see the path laid out for them right there. Ohio State, Indiana. I mean, there's a good chance we could see 1 versus 2 again in the national championship game when it all shakes out.
Yeah, the only thing that scares me, Ohio State got the tougher draw because Georgia's over there, and Georgia is just they're going to take on A&M, and then they're going to have to walk through Georgia, and that's going to be that's just a beefy matchup. This Georgia team, not as good early in the season as I thought they should be. It took them a long time to sort of get defensively centered, but my God, for anyone that didn't watch the SEC championship game, the inability to run on this defense at all by Bama, they kept trying. They couldn't do it. Negative yards late in the game on that. Like, it's electric to watch Georgia play. So Georgia, Ohio State, I think could end up being the best game of the entire college football playoff if we're lucky enough to get it.
Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports. Last thing on college football as we wrap this up. Every year, there's enough of a program that throws a fit about something, and there's always a change. And it really was about a fit last year, but we saw last year they made an adjustment to the playoff without the auto bids or the auto buys going to the conference champions. They made a slight adjustment there. what's the next slight adjustment or major adjustment? Do you see this same format, same layout in a year from now for next year's college football playoff based on the reaction from what we've seen already, throughout this process?
No, I think two things will change. The conferences will look at their tie-breaking procedures to make sure they get the best teams into the conference championship game. ACC never really wanted Duke in that game to begin with. They wanted Miami in that game. A 5-way tiebreaker created that Duke situation. That's bad for the conference. They'll figure out a way to fix that. I don't know what the solution is, but they'll figure it out. And then I wouldn't be surprised at all to see a minimum ranking requirement for any team with an automatic bid. It's such an easy solution to say you're guaranteed if you win a conference championship and you are a top 20 team, you're guaranteed a bid. If you're a top 16 team, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see them force a guarantee tied into a minimum ranking just to avoid teams that don't belong.
All right, two quick NFL things on the way out. Shedeur looks really, really good against bad teams, questionable against good teams. Cleveland announces that they're going to ride it out with Shedeur as their quarterback for the remainder of the season, which seems like the obvious logical choice. Big numbers, 360 yards this past weekend, 4 total touchdowns. How much of that were you impressed with? How much of it do you say, yeah, but it's the Titans? How do you feel about the Browns and Shedeur moving forward?
So this goes back to the Titans-Raiders game a few months ago, or about a month ago. The Titans played the Raiders. This is the worst. I'm a Raiders fan. Everybody knows that. This is the worst Raiders team I've seen in my lifetime. Worse than the Jamarcus Russell years. This is the worst team I've ever watched play. And a buddy of mine that covers the Titans was on the field at the end of the Titans-Raiders game. And one of the Raiders coaches said to him as he was leaving the field about the Titans, that team I just saw is the worst team I've ever seen on a football field in 25 years of coaching. That I just want people to have context of how bad the Titans and Raiders are. I think they are, although they've won some games, I think they are respectively each two of the worst teams we've seen in modern football history. So I want to believe that this is some big moment for Shedeur. I just want us all to be patient. Let's see the rest of the season instead of anointing anything, because same message. I've been consistent on this. Falcons fans were blowing me up a year ago. Oh, Michael Penix Jr. is the answer. And I'm like, y'all got 6 games. From 6 games, you've decided that he's the answer at quarterback. I like a little bit more proof of concept. Now we get midway through this year. Unfortunately, he gets hurt. But even before he was injured, Falcons fans like, I don't know if we got the guy. Like, it takes more than 3 games, 2 of which have been against 2 of the worst teams we've seen in modern football history, for there to be any sweeping indictment one way or the other on Shedeur. Like, this is not a great radio take, but I think we need to let the rest of the season play out. I think probably worst case scenario, if I'm the Browns, if I'm picking where I don't have a shot at a quarterback next year, I'm going to bring back Shedeur. I'm probably going to bring back Dylan Gabriel because I don't want to admit that I missed on a 3rd-round pick also. And I'm going to bring in another vet, and I'm going to let them all compete all offseason and see who can be my best starter next year. But I think the Browns are probably still a year away from knowing what they have at the quarterback position, because it's going to take more time on task, more body of work to know where Shedeur is.
Well, the good news is they may not have to bring a veteran in, because they already announced that that Deshaun will be on the roster next year. So Deshaun is saving the money. Think of the money that they won't have to spend now on a veteran quarterback. They just, he's saving them money. I've always thought Deshaun has been saving them money over the years.
It's incredible. You're right, though. There's a very real chance that Deshaun Watson can be the starting quarterback of the Browns next year, and I don't think anybody's ready for that. Anybody.
Hey, you know what? If he's the Houston Deshaun, but we've been saying that for years.
Yeah,
so we can move on. We can move on. All right, good stuff. Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports. Jason, you the man. I appreciate you as always, and we'll talk again next week.
Every week.
Take care. All right, good stuff. The Justin Kidder Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. 937-518-1410. More of the Justin Kidder Show next.
Results may vary.
Some shows give you hot takes. We give you hot takes, cold takes, wrong takes. We'll let you know when Kinner has a right take. The Justin Kinner Show. Weekdays 3 to 5 on 1410 ESPN Wing AM. Now, back to the Justin Kinner Show on 1410 ESPN Radio and on the stream at wingam.com.
Justin Kinner back with you here, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Thank you, Jason Fitz with Yahoo Sports, giving us time like he does each and every week. 937-518-1410. That's the name. That's the number. I'm sorry, to call and jump in on the conversation. You could also text that number as well. We opened up the show today. Look, Notre Dame, a lot of crying from the Fighting Irish fans when it comes to them being left out of the college football playoffs. It's died down a little today, and I'll probably be done with it today. But I just wanted to be clear. We've seen temper tantrums. We've seen teams throw temper tantrums. I thought Florida State, I was annoyed with their reaction, but to their credit, they still played in their bowl game. To Florida State's credit, when they got left out of the playoff, back when they finished as a, Power 4, Power 5, undefeated conference champion, to their credit, 2023 Florida State, they played in their bowl game. TCU Baylor in 2014, they played in their bowl game. And the reason I bring these teams up is I opened up the show. I created my top 5 college football playoff screw jobs, which programs legitimately got screwed out of a playoff appearance throughout the history of the playoff going back to 2014. It's been around now for 11 years. And in the last decade, I think there's been a handful of teams who have been screwed over by the committee. And I shouldn't say screwed over, because with this list that I have right here, every team that made the playoff, to me, deserved to be in the playoff. I don't think there was a year that I felt like teams shouldn't be in. The one thing that the 12-team playoff was supposed to do was provide us the talking points of every team that deserved to be in is in. Well, that's not the case. I don't think that Arizona, last year, when you think about the teams that made it with Boise and others, I'm like, why are we force feeding this? Like, I feel like we are forcing, when you look at the teams who are in it right now, I feel like we are forcing the JMU, into this thing, Tulane. I'm not a big fan of these teams popping up into this equation. And it doesn't mean they're bad programs. It doesn't mean that these kids aren't talented, but this just feels like it's being forced upon us as fans, and I'm not a fan of that. I'll meet Notre Dame fans halfway. Here's the one argument that I have been getting a lot, and to be fair, it's not an argument because it's the way the playoff is set up. That's why JMU and Tulane are in here. But theoretically, if this really was about the best teams, I would take James Madison and toss them out. I would toss Tulane out, and honestly, it would come down to Texas and Notre Dame filling those final spots. I would have replaced Tulane with Notre Dame, and we'd get Notre Dame and Ole Miss in the first round, and I would have replaced James Madison with Texas. And you could maybe make an argument for not make an argument. BYU. BYU should be the 13th team just on the outside looking in. Right? Like that to me, that's how it should have shaken out. As far as that goes. So Notre Dame, when you're upset that you're not in it and that Alabama is, you're getting this wrong. To me, I don't mind Alabama being in. If this really was about the 12 best teams, it would be Alabama. Alabama still is part of the 12 best teams, by the way. I don't think that they're winning a national championship, but I'm also an advocate for Oregon to be in. I don't think that they're winning a national championship. I'm an advocate for Oklahoma and Miami to be in, and I don't think that they're winning a national championship. So I don't think that's what this is, just overall. But Notre Dame should be in, but Alabama's not why they're not in. It's because of this stupid rule where we have to force feed teams that don't deserve to be in there, like James Madison and Tulane. Nonetheless, I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show. So again, we opened up diving into the list I made of the top 5 college football playoff screw jobs. I had 2018 Ohio State coming in at number 5, Penn State from 16. 2018 Ohio State, Baker Mayfield and Oklahoma made it. The problem I had with it is Oklahoma's offense was one of the best in the nation. Ohio State's was the best offense in the nation. You had J.K. Dobbins. You had Terry McLaurin. Like, you had, you know what I mean? Like, they had everything you could imagine on the offensive side of the ball. Dwayne Haskins threw for over 50 touchdowns. They threw for over 50 touchdowns that year. They beat Michigan. They put 50 up. They put 60 up on Michigan that year. They throttled them. They should have been in. But they said Oklahoma, they trusted their offense more. I'm like, yes, but Ohio State was more of the complete package. Oklahoma was giving up 45 points per game that season, and they still put Oklahoma in over Ohio State. I had a problem with that. And that's why I say, hey, 2018 Ohio State, I'm putting them as the number 5 on my list when I created my top 5 college football playoff screw jobs. In 2016, Penn State, they beat Ohio State that season. Okay, they beat Ohio State. They would get to the Big Ten championship game. They beat Wisconsin. Penn State was Big Ten champions. They beat Ohio State, and the committee said, we're going to take the team that the Big Ten champion beat. We're going to take the team that the Big Ten champion beat, the Big Ten champion, we're going to leave out, and we're going to put Ohio State in. Ohio State lost to the Big Ten champion. They didn't even make the Big Ten championship. I have Penn State coming in at number 4. Baylor, TCU, I said, hey, I made a mistake on my list. I should have counted them as the same. Both of them were held out of the playoff because they both did not play in a conference championship game. 2014 TCU and Baylor should have been the Big 12 championship showdown. But Baylor, who lost to TCU, but Baylor had a better resume, but they lost to TCU. So the head-to-head TCU would have got in over Baylor if you would have just named one. They should have gone. TCU, to me, got screwed over the second most of any team in the history of the playoff. I talked about this earlier. TCU lost to Baylor, yes. But as we know, as we've talked about before, the one thing that was interesting about this is the fact that TCU, they entered the final weekend ranked at number 3. In the final week of the regular season, they destroyed Iowa State 55-3. They were ranked because of that. They were ranked at number 3. Conference championship weekend happens, and then they drop TCU from number 3 all the way to number 6. After winning by 52 points in the final week of the season, the committee still dropped them from 3 to 6. All of a sudden, the committee just was super passionate about conference championships. They forced those conference championships on to conferences like the Big 12. And then the Big 12 gets conference championships. They missed it for the next couple of years, of course. But then they allow Ohio State in over Penn State when Penn State was the Big 10 champion. Ohio State didn't even get there. And the number 1 team on my list, of course, coming in on that is the 2023 Florida State Seminoles, of course. Undefeated, 13-0 ACC Power 5 champion with wins over LSU and Florida in the non-conference. They won the ACC championship game, too. They won it, but they were without their quarterback for the last couple of games of the season, and they went from looking dominant to barely being able to move the ball, and the committee just said, you know what? Your quarterback is hurt. We're just basing this off of the eye test over the last couple of weeks. Even though you still won those games, you didn't look pretty doing it, and they ultimately kept them out. And it created the biggest public backlash in the history of the college football playoff. Some would say that's, but to me, I didn't like how Florida State handled it necessarily, but they had a gripe. I understood where their anger was coming from. I don't understand where Notre Dame's anger is coming from. I mean, you could be angry you didn't make the playoff, but to act like a bunch of spoiled, rich children, entitled children, I think is where I'm having a hard time connecting with them at. So there you go. That's my top 5 college football playoff screw job list as far as that goes. And one thing we talked about with Jason Fitz as well was the fact that because of Notre Dame's temper tantrum, we haven't really been able to focus on the field itself. It's a super talented field. I'm very excited about the potential matchups. I mean, like Ohio State is going to face the winner between Texas A&M and Miami, no matter who they play in the Fiesta Bowl and in the quarterfinals. That's going to be massive. That's going to be a huge showdown. You're going to face Texas A&M, by the way, who ended up finishing at 7th. They were sitting in the top 3 pretty much the entire season. Texas A&M is a legit team. Ohio State was pretty much number 1 the entire season. That's a heck of a quarterfinal showdown. And the winner of that will go on to face most likely Georgia. I am very intrigued by Ole Miss. I feel like, I could definitely envision a storyline of, a team whose head coach basically quit on them to take the LSU job. it's going to be fascinating to see what ultimately happens. What kind of run can Ole Miss go on? They finished 6th in the final college football playoff rankings. And, it's just one of those things as we kind of sit back and look at that. They're going to play Tulane. The crazy thing is they've already faced Tulane. This is a rematch. Ole Miss beat Tulane back in week 4 of the college football season, 45-10. They blew the doors off Tulane. And the winner will go on to face Georgia. Now, Ole Miss, all right, they're sitting here right now. When you look at their record and kind of who they are, they did lose to Georgia. But Ole Miss is 11-1. Their only loss was against Georgia just about a month and some change ago, and they lost 43-35. They lost by a possession. That was a heck of a game. And if that's what we get in the quarterfinals, that's going to be pretty dang impressive. Chambliss, the quarterback for Ole Miss, threw for 263 yards and a touchdown. Ole Miss, the problem is they struggled running the football against Georgia. That's going to be my concern. If Ohio State runs into Georgia, what are they going to look like when they struggle to run the football? But Ohio State, Georgia in the semifinal. And then on the other side, Oregon and James Madison, I think we know. Look, Oregon's going to come out on top in that. That's going to set up a Texas Tech-Oregon matchup. Indiana will wait and face the winner between Alabama and Oklahoma. That's another rematch. I was talking with a friend of mine here at work, Ryan Drake, earlier today. That was his biggest problem is that the committee set up a lot of rematches, especially in the opening round. We've already seen Oklahoma, who finished 10-2 on the season. We've already seen them play Alabama. They beat Alabama 23-21 just a few weeks ago. 23-21. It was a heck of a game, and we're going to be in for another good game. But Alabama, Oklahoma, the winner will go on to face Indiana in the first round. Potentially Indiana, Alabama, Oregon, Texas Tech in the quarterfinals. Then you get Indiana against Alabama. Like we talked about this with Jason, I do feel like because it's the Indiana brand, I don't think we don't respect the brand. Since Curt Cinetti has taken over, Indiana has only 2 losses. They lost to Notre Dame last year in the playoff and Ohio State in the regular season. And they haven't lost at all this season. But since Curt Cinetti has taken over, he took shots at Penn State, he took shots at Michigan, he took shots at Ohio State. And to his credit, he's beat Ohio State. He's beat Michigan. He's beat Penn State. They went on the road and they won by double digits at Oregon earlier this year when Oregon was the number 3 team in the country. And now here we are 2 years into the Curt Cinetti run. And in year 2, Indiana is undefeated. They are Big Ten champions, and they didn't beat Iowa. They didn't beat Purdue to win their Big Ten championship. They won the face of the conference. And yeah, I find a lot of people doing this. I still need to see it more. We've seen them beat Michigan already. We've seen them beat Penn State. We've seen them beat Oregon. We've seen them beat Ohio State. And I do feel like, and maybe I'm guilty of this too, we're all kind of sitting back saying, I kind of need to see them beat Alabama or Oklahoma for me to buy in and believe. But very well easily could see another rematch in these playoffs between Indiana and Oregon in the semifinal. Could potentially see Indiana versus Texas Tech. Who knows? But the bottom line is those are the potential matchups right there. Could see Georgia, Ohio State in the semifinal with Indiana and Oregon in the semifinal, or Oklahoma and Oregon. Either way, a lot of really fun matchups that we're going to get to watch and follow throughout this playoff nonetheless. Okay, we spent a lot of time on yesterday's show on the Cincinnati Reds. Very disappointed in the Reds. They did not close the door. They did not close the deal. I'm sorry. They definitely closed the door. They could not close the deal, so they closed the door on the Kyle Schwarber sweepstakes. Again, they offered Kyle Schwarber 5 years, $25 million per. 5 year, $125 million. Couldn't get the deal done. Nick Kroll came out and said they were not going to turn their attention towards any other expensive free agents. But the Reds all of a sudden are being mentioned as heavy suitors to land 2 of the top trade pieces this offseason. The Reds said they weren't going to turn their attention towards expensive free agents, but they might go get impact bats in this lineup through the trade market. Who are the players that the Reds are linked to? We'll discuss when we come back. It's the Justin Kinder Show presented by Frickers. Hour 2 coming up next.
The Cincinnati Bengals defense is just like Chick-fil-A, not available on Sundays. The Justin Kinner Show, 1410.
on the water, see how much you can save at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com.
The Reds tried to make a splash in free agency. They sent the player a Venmo request instead. Only Cincinnati could negotiate backwards. The Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
Justin Kinner back with you here, 1410 ESPN Radio. Yeah, yesterday, just a bad day for Reds fans. I mean, so many Reds fans, and I truly believe we're all hesitant and skeptical to even start to get excited about the idea of Kyle Schwarber ending up in Cincinnati. I was one of those skeptical fans. And then I started buying into it because, you know, the Reds could have put a squash to this. They could have put an end to this. But why go in on a guy that you know you don't have a chance to get? Because the only thing you risk a lot, actually. What you end up doing is you end up leading your fans along, thinking that you're actually going to do something that we all knew you weren't going to do, but then we started thinking, well, maybe you'll do something different because you have a generational talent in Elly De La Cruz. You have a great rotation. You have Hunter Green. You have a Hall of Fame manager in Terry Francona. Silly us for thinking that this organization was all of a sudden going to do something slightly different, right? Like that's the frustrating part when it's all said and done, is the fact that they did not pull it off. And again, I kept looking at it in the year-by-year dollars that they lost out on Kyle Schwarber over, but they got outbid by $25 million over the length of the contract. But I looked at it as a year-by-year basis. Like I said, if the Reds get to the end of this season and they miss the playoffs by a couple of games, and you know, how many games would have been won if you missed the playoffs by a couple of games? How many of those couple of games would have been won had you had a guy that has the power of Kyle Schwarber, who hit 56 home runs last year and, of course, 130 RBIs? Dusty Baker was just recently quoted as saying, man, the Reds need to do everything they can to land him. He would hit 70 home runs if he played the majority of his games in that ballpark. Elly De La Cruz led the Reds with 20-something home runs last year. Kyle Schwarber had 56. Elly De La Cruz led all Reds in RBIs with about 80-something. Kyle Schwarber had 130. I mean, what are we doing here? And let's be clear, Elly was the team's home run leader. Elly is not a power hitter. Remember, he went an entire month without knocking the ball to the ballpark and then went another 2 weeks after he finally hit one after a month. Yeah, the guy's just not a power hitter. Not yet. Hopefully that power comes, but it shouldn't be us hoping that the power comes to him. It should have been the power coming to him along with the power bat, the veteran bat in that lineup, because it's not fair to Elly De La Cruz, who is trying to learn how to be a superstar player. But it's a lot easier to learn how to become a superstar when you are in, Philadelphia, who has a ton of depth. When you're in, obviously, with the Dodgers, the Reds have a responsibility to try to help develop Elly De La Cruz by not just putting him in position for him to develop individually, but to put veteran talent around him to take the pressure off. You know how much better Elly De La Cruz, like, forget all the analytics and forget all of just your traditional baseball logic when it comes to why Kyle Schwarber would have made Elly De La Cruz better. Any star player would make Elly De La Cruz better, because then Elly De La Cruz wouldn't have to feel like he's Joe Burrow. Where Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase feel like they have to do absolutely every tiny little thing, Elly De La Cruz will not have to feel like he has to do every little tiny thing for his team to succeed. I think a lot of the times the reason he strikes out a lot is, yes, some fundamental flaws, but I think he's pressing at the plate. He's a young kid. He's just a few years into the league. He's already being told that he's the face of a franchise. He's being told that he has a 10 to 15, $700-800 million contract coming his way in the next couple of years. And I'm sure I think it's awesome what he did too, because he could have just had a translator with him everywhere he went, but he wanted to be able to communicate with the media, communicate with the fans. This guy's trying to do everything right on his end, all while his own organization is trying to do everything to work against him. And the organization doesn't wake up saying, how can we screw over Elly De La Cruz today? But what they are doing is every day waking up, not saying, what do we need to do to elevate Elly De La Cruz today? A power bat, Kyle Schwarber in that lineup would have allowed Elly De La Cruz to stop pressing at the plate. He would have relaxed. Hey, I'm in a little bit of a slump right now, but it's okay because my guy, Kyle Schwarber, he can hit me out of this. He's going to at least produce while I try to figure some stuff out. When Elly's not hitting, the Reds aren't hitting and they're not scoring runs. And I think that enhances the stress level, that enhances and increases the droughts. And it's up to the Reds to figure out how they're going to fix this. Because what their mindset is, well, we don't have veterans, but within a year or two, these guys will be considered veterans. Within a year or two, we'll be talking about Ellie's final season in Cincinnati, you bums. It's just unfortunate. The other thing that's frustrating as well is a quote that I didn't interpret correctly yesterday from the Reds' Nick Krall in the front office. So apparently, the Reds decided that when they put out their explanation and reasoning for why they were so aggressive going after Kyle Schwarber is because of this. Okay, this is what they said. They said the Reds were in on Kyle Schwarber. Okay, they were in the Kyle Schwarber derby because of where he's from. They would have made an exception for him because they felt like he would have put fans in the ballpark. That's such a stupid mindset of the Cincinnati Reds front office. Pete Alonso will put my ass in the ballpark. Any attempt at bringing by the way, and what a backhanded way to stick it to the guys in that clubhouse. Because Ellie De La Cruz and Hunter Green and these cats in that clubhouse are saying, well, hold on, I thought you wanted to get Kyle Schwarber to help us win. And I've said it before that once a decade, the Reds are willing to dump money into one player because that's the draw for the next 10 years. The Reds, and because this was my frustrating point about Joey Votto years ago, I was like, man, they gave Joey Votto a 10-year, $225 million contract. That's badass. They're not doing that if they don't plan on trying to win with them. That's exactly what they were doing. Because they said, we're not going to win a lot of games. We're just going to hope that every night at Great American Ballpark that there's going to be enough dumb fans that are going to fall for I can't wait to go see Joey Votto. And hopefully we'll have enough young and exciting players that have just recently been called up that'll intrigue you enough to go check out check them out at the ballpark. As long as we're within 5 games of a wild card spot, that intrigue right there. So being in the playoff race, having a draw in Joey Votto, that's all we need. I'm getting those major vibes right now. I'm getting we're not going to go all out to get a Kyle Schwarber. We're not going to go all out to get a superstar because, Ellie De La Cruz, you're going to come to the ballpark to watch him. He's the draw. And we have a couple draws, actually, because we've developed very well. So we have Hunter Green. We have Ellie De La Cruz. When Ellie leaves here in a few years and Hunter Green, they can't extend him because his second contract is going to, be through the roof. They'll spend money on a top free agent or they'll try to pay somebody just to be their draw. That's all the Reds care about. They just want somebody to be a draw for them when it's all said and done. And that's the frustrating part. There's a lot of frustrating parts, but that's just one of the many, bullet points of why I can't stand this front office. And I give, and to be fair, I've always been I've been fair to Nick Krall. I've defended Nick Krall on many occasions because I've said the reason that we are pissed, the reason that we're so upset is because Ellie De La Cruz, Matt McClain, Spencer Steer, Sal Stewart, right? Like you talk about these guys, you look at, the Tyler Stevensons of the world, you look at the Hunter Greens, the Nick Lodolos, the Chase Burnses of the world, the Rhett Louders, the Andrew Abbotts. Guys, all of those are Nick Krall. Nick Krall has done a lot of good things for the Reds. Nick Krall has done a very good job with this organization when it comes to the drafting and putting them in position to develop and be who they're supposed to be. So I got to give Nick Krall some credit for getting the Reds to the point to where we're pissed off. I think he's way better than what the Pirates have working over there. The Reds, the reason we're angry is because we have expectations. The reason we have expectations is because this team has talent. And the reason that this team has talent is because of our guy, Nick Krall. But the reason that we also get mad at Nick Krall is because we've got to the point to where we don't care what this team has anymore because we know that this team doesn't have enough to ultimately accomplish what we want them to. And what we thought was, the Reds aren't going to be aggressive in free agency and for another year or two. 2 years ago, we said this, to let these young guys start to develop a bit. Well, they're developed, and we know what this team needs, and yet they're refusing to go and to address those needs. Man, oh man. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. So the one thing that is interesting about this Reds team is the fact that, okay, where do they go from here? All right, now what? They swung and missed on Kyle Schwarber. Now where do they go from here? What's coming up? The Reds said that they were not going to pursue any other top free agents. I did see today that Pete Alonso was an available free agent. You wanted a power bat in Schwarber. You could have got a power bat in Pete Alonso. A great first baseman for you. And the Orioles got a 5-year, $155 million deal done with him. That was just north of 30, 35, or 35 mil a year, in that range. So, to the Orioles' credit, it came out yesterday that the Pirates offered Kyle Schwarber 4 years, $100 million, $25 mil a year. The Reds offered Kyle Schwarber 5 years, $125 mil, $25 mil a year. We all know that he ultimately signed with the Phillies on a 5-year, $150 million contract at $30 a year. What we also found out after yesterday was that the Phillies agreed to that deal with Schwarber, but that Schwarber's team went back to every other team to see if anyone would match what the Phillies would do. The Reds declined, the Pirates declined, and the Orioles said yes. The Orioles said, we will match what the Phillies are offering. Ultimately, Schwarber, who I do think wanted to be a Red, decided to stay put in Philadelphia because the difference was $25 million. But to the Orioles' credit, this is why I appreciate the Orioles. The Orioles didn't say, well, we were able to scrounge up enough change to match their offer of 5 years, $150 million. And since we lost out on him, we're not going to, they could have said, they took that $150 million that they were going to use for Kyle Schwarber after they struck out on him. And the Orioles said, all right, well, let's go get Pete Alonso. And they gave that same money to him. It's basically what the Reds did with Joey Votto back in 2012. You remember Watt Jocketty? Used to be with the Cardinals. He comes over to the Reds. Albert Pujols, Cardinals legend, was about to become a free agent. The Reds had cleared enough money to give Albert Pujols 10 years, $225 million deal. The Reds were positioning themselves to go get Albert Pujols. Could you imagine Albert Pujols in Cincinnati at that ballpark? That would have been unreal. So what ended up happening is the Cardinals offered, the Angels offered Albert Pujols more money. The Reds didn't land Albert Pujols, so they took the same money that they laid out for Albert Pujols and basically just slotted it over and said, Joey Votto, do you want this? And the Reds got Joey Votto for that money. So I thought that that's what happened here. The Reds offered, obviously, 5 years, 5 years, $25 million a year per. I thought they would take that exact money and use it elsewhere. And that's not the case. The Reds will not use that money to go address a power bat. And that's very, very unfortunate. So don't get your hopes up, because what I thought was, oh man, it's like if you're looking for a house. Hey, I have enough money saved up for this house. Hey, did they accept my offer? Hey, I put an offer in on a home. Hopefully we can get this house under contract. Oh, they declined our offer. Well, shoot, I guess we're just going to be homeless. No, what you do is you take the money that you got approved for a home, and you go and you find another home that you're going to put that money towards. That's not what the Reds are doing here. They put up enough money to go get a home. Their offer got rejected, and instead of going to look for another home, they're just going to remain homeless. The Reds are a bunch of fill in the blanks. They don't care about you. They don't care about the players on this team. They care about themselves, and that's the unfortunate part. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. 937-518-1410. I'm sorry, some calls came in. I didn't see them in time. Well, I'll get you guys put on hold during this break. We'll be right back. More of the Justin Kinner Show next.
The Reds spend money the way Kinner eats salads, rarely and reluctantly. The Justin Kinner Show, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Fitz invented something new, wallet load management. They rest the bank account like the NBA rests its players. A Justin Kinner Show, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
937-518-1410, the number to call and jump in on the conversation. The Dayton Weight Loss Secret Program has successfully helped thousands of people lose 20 to 30 pounds in the first month or two, myself included, of course. You can schedule your free consultation in person or virtually by giving them a call today at 937-999-1480 or online at DaytonWeightLossSecret.com. Welcome you back. I'm Justin Kinner. Again, we've talked Reds, talked college football. Jason Fitz, who hopped on with us earlier from Yahoo Sports. If you missed that, we have that coming up for you here around the corner. NFL action continuing on this week. I thought it was funny, with everyone, with all Browns fans excited about the Shedeur Sanders game last week. With the loss, though, the Browns joined the Jets, the Titans, and the Raiders. All four teams have officially been eliminated from playoff contention. Darn, I thought the Browns had a chance. Darn. In the NFC, the Commanders, the Giants have been eliminated from playoff contention out of the NFC East. It's going to come down to the Eagles and the Cowboys, not just in the wild card race, but, of course, for the division, as the Cowboys sit a game and a half behind the Eagles in that division as far as that goes. The NFC North, the Vikings have not been eliminated yet, but they are 5-8. They're looking up at, of course, the Lions, who are 8-5. And the Lions, I remember when the NFC was so bad, teams with losing records were winning some of those divisions. Teams with losing records were hosting playoff games. And now a legit team like the Lions, maybe even the Bears, could ultimately miss the playoffs this year. That's how deep the NFC is at this point. The NFC South, of course, has always been the weakest of all the divisions in the NFC. Falcons and Saints, they've both been eliminated out of playoff contention, and so have the Cardinals over in the NFC West. The Rams and the Seahawks both have the best record, tied for the best record in the NFC at 10-3 apiece. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield lead the way in the South at 7-6, tied with the Panthers at 7-6. Packers 9-3, Bears 9-4, and then of course the Cowboys 8-5, and the Cowboys 6-1, and the Eagles at 8-5, 13 games, 4 weeks to go. The NFL season's wrapping up here in the next month. The playoffs are not too far off in the distance, and as I mentioned, the Cleveland Browns have officially been eliminated from playoff contention, but the Bengals, who don't have an E in front of their name, they're staring at it though. They're 4-9. Right, they're coming off of that embarrassing loss against the Bills. The defense looked about how the defense has looked for a while, but Joe Burrow, after looking solid in his return against the Ravens on Thanksgiving night, didn't look so hot against the Bills. In fact, he turned the ball over 3 times in the fourth quarter, especially to throw 2 interceptions the way he did, and then on the 2-point conversion attempt to fumble it for a loss. Not a good look for Joe Burrow, who, of course, is trying to continue to keep his name in the conversation with the Josh Allens and Lamar Jacksons and the Patrick Mahomes and even the Jalen Hurts, who Jalen Hurts is not having a good year, but he's a Super Bowl MVP. Lamar Jackson's a 2-time MVP. Josh Allen just won an MVP. Patrick Mahomes, I think he's done a couple things in the league. Joe Burrow trying to keep his name up there with those guys, but yet continues to miss the playoffs, continues to be injured, and just can't get it done. The Bengals have so many other issues, though, that's not as much of a talking. Joe Burrow gets let off the hook because the Bengals have so many issues. Everyone says, well, it's not Joe Burrow. It's not Joe Burrow. But Joe Burrow plays a role in it. Joe Burrow has played a role in many losses. He's not available, way more times than he is available. That's a problem. But the AFC North is interesting this year, as we've talked about for usually all the right reasons. This year, it's all the wrong reasons. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 7-6. Last week, all the talk was about the Steelers potentially moving on from Mike Tomlin at the end of the year. Then they get a win over the Ravens. They're 7-6, sitting atop the division. Not only does it look like Mike Tomlin might extend his 500 win streak at this point, but they may very well win this division because the Baltimore Ravens, their 1-4 start, their 1-5 start was chalked up a lot to, okay, they were without Lamar Jackson, and they had a ton of injuries. They had a ton of injuries. On the defensive side of the ball, but they've started to get more healthy. You've had Lamar Jackson back, but Lamar Jackson looks like a shadow of what he used to winning those MVPs. And Lamar was fantastic last year, probably should have won an MVP last year. Josh Allen ultimately won it, but I thought Lamar's year last year was more impressive than his previous MVP. But Lamar just has not been himself. Lamar has only thrown for 2,060 yards at this point of the season. All right, he is completing 63% of those. He's only thrown 16 touchdowns. He's turned the ball over 5 times. He's been sacked 29 times. But it is interesting seeing how the teams with the highest paid quarterbacks, how now it's taken a few years, but like the Bengals are struggling with Joe Burrow paid to put a full roster out there. The Ravens, after Lamar has been paid, they've regressed each, year in and year out since Lamar has been paid. The Chiefs are no longer the dynasty Chiefs. They are a team that looks like, oh yeah, we paid our quarterback a lot of money. Our number one pass catcher is an aging, pop star tight end. The Bills are 9-4. Yes, they're solid, but they look like a team that has a very, very highly paid quarterback and that they're trying to piecemeal the rest of the roster together. Look at the top teams in the league right now. You look at the New England Patriots, quarterback on a rookie deal. This isn't rocket science. This isn't new. The Eagles are 8-5. Jalen Hurts has been paid. They don't look like the dominant Eagles anymore. The Cowboys, ever since they've paid Dak Prescott, they have really struggled to put a consistent contender out on that field. They look like a team that has a highly paid quarterback with a lot of deficiencies throughout the remainder of the roster. The Packers just paid Jordan Love, so we'll start to see that deteriorate over the years. But look at the Bears as they've jumped back in to the fun. They're good again. Why? Quarterback on a rookie deal, and they're able to piece it together. The Seattle Seahawks, they paid $40 million for Sam Darnold, but that's not the $55 million that Joe Burrow and the 53, 54 that Lamar Jackson is getting, and the Patrick Mahomes and company and those guys. So the bottom line is now we're starting to see the league even out a bit. Who's going to jump up and take advantage of this window? The Bears have an opportunity to do it. The Patriots look like they're going to be in prime position to do it. Houston, I thought was going to be able to do it. They're 8-5. I thought after the rookie year that we saw from CJ Stroud that they would be the next one to jump up and grab the league by its throat. They're good this year, but they're not elite. The Broncos, that's another prime example. They're not paying Bo Nix anything right now. So all their money is being put on the defensive side of the ball, and that's why they're as dominant as what they are. They've given up 235 points over in the AFC West. The Raiders have given up 332. The Chiefs have given up 252. The Chargers have given up 271. The Broncos, effective offensively, but elite defensively because they could put their money there. The Ravens aren't the defensive team they used to be because all their money's on the offensive side of the ball. The Bengals don't even know what a defense is until they run into a good one on game day. The Browns, and this is what pisses me off about the Browns, is the Browns have a super expensive quarterback, fully guaranteed money. The Browns, if they were just able to muster up an average offense, Cleveland's the only team I know in football that has been able to pay their quarterback and put out an elite defense year in and year out. The Browns defense, they're good every year. We never talk about the Browns defense because of the joke that is always is the calamity on the offensive side of the ball. Can you imagine if Shador is the guy and they finally get a quarterback and they finally have this defense and the damage that they can consistently do moving forward? And I'm not saying they're going to dominate this division, but there will be a regular playoff contender moving forward instead of the joke that they've been for so long. Cleveland's the only one I know that has been able to consistently have a power defense with an expensive quarterback. The Ravens haven't been able to do it. The Bengals can't do it. The Bills have proven that their defense has regressed in recent years. The Chiefs' defense isn't what it was. The Eagles, after paying Jalen Hurts, it's not the defense that it once was. That's what's frustrating about Cleveland, is by the time they do figure it out offensively, when Quinshawn and Sampson and maybe Shador and Isaiah Bond, and it looks like some mock drafts came out, and it has the Browns taking our guy, Carnell Tate, out of Ohio State. By the time they do figure this offense out, Denzel Ward will be another year older. Garrett's could start regressing. They'll just never be on the same page. That's my biggest complaint about the Browns, is the wasted opportunity of that defense. But 937-518-1410. He goes by Grandpa Mike in Dayton. You're on live, sir. Thanks for holding.
Justin, how you doing, buddy?
Another day in paradise. What you got going on?
Hey. Oh, I'm up here in Inglewood Park, my favorite place to sit and just think and listen to the radio. Anyway, I have agreed with you in everything you said today, which is not normal. I'm not in Shaw's category. No, I'm nowhere near that. I agree with
He's
you
in a category of his own, to be honest. He's in a category of his own, to be fair. So.
Well, no, he's like A plus.
Oh yeah, all by himself over there.
I'm just an average person, but anyway, what's mind-boggling to me. I agree 100%. I'm going back. I know I want to talk about the Reds, and I do.
Yeah.
And I know guys on the team all through the system I still talk to, and you know that. But anyway, they couldn't have offered another $5 million.
Apparently not. Apparently not.
That's insane to me. I don't care if he strikes out 200 times.
Like I think, yeah, the five. I mean, like I said, if the Phillies would have got him for 35 or 40 a year, I wouldn't have been happy. But I would have been like, yeah, the Reds weren't gonna dance. They weren't gonna swim in those waters. But for $30 million a year, that's kind of what I expected him to go for anyways. And I figured the Reds would have expected that to be the case as well. So for them to be shocked, like, why even get involved if you know you can't do it? I have a huge problem with the fact that they bailed out with $5 million being the difference. And some people say, well, it's 25 over the length of the contract. The Reds aren't giving it all up at once. It's on a yearly basis anyway. So they literally gave him up. They gave up on him because of $5 million this year and for the next 4, which is the window of which they'll be competitive to begin with. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Actually, it does. It's the Reds.
And didn't they say they supposedly offered Alonso a contract?
I have not come across that. I would be surprised. I mean, if they did, I'm sure it was the same exact
Baltimore
deal.
Signed him. You know how I have my ties to Baltimore growing up there, and I hate the Orioles. I still do. They went out and signed Alonso for $155 million for 5 years.
Yeah, the money that because the Orioles had contacted the team of Schwarber and said, hey, whatever the Phillies offered you, we'll offer you that as well. Schwarber ultimately picked the Phillies.
They did match it.
Yeah, they did match it. It came out today that they matched it, that they would match whatever the Phillies gave them. The Reds would not match. The Pirates would not match. So the money that they had saved or put away to get Kyle Schwarber, they ultimately just turned their attention towards Pete Alonso, and kudos to them because that's a heck of a get. And the Reds, that would have been a brilliant get for them.
No. Yeah, I agree. But then I did hear today that supposedly on a different radio station, listen to sports stuff, that the Reds are involved with possibly trading some prospects to get a medium average hitter, but with power. I have no idea who they're talking about, but I heard that they were talking about there were like 2 or 3 different guys they were talking about.
Well,
I have no clue. You'll know that before I ever do.
So Ken Rosenthal today said that, and again, I don't know what to make of this, but the Reds are exploring trade options for the second baseman of the Diamondbacks and Ketel Marte. That's massive. If you get him, I mean, if you have Marte and Elly De La Cruz, and I still think Elly should be in the outfield, but between that and then who they have at
center field all day.
The Reds, if they do land Marte, they would have the most athletic infield of any team in baseball if they would be able to pull that off.
So McLean goes bye-bye, right?
Yeah, unless you move McLean to short. I would move McLean to short. That's where, I mean.
Oh, Justin.
Where would you move McLean?
Kid Arroyo coming up. They got to let this kid play. They got to give him a shot.
So
I've seen him play.
All right.
The shortstop.
I mean, I know he's coming up through the ranks, but at some point you need veteran players that can get out there and actually play. And I'm hoping that McLean actually turns back the clock and returns to what he was his rookie year and not what he was last year. Because last year was a nightmare. That was not good last year.
Oh, that was a nightmare.
Yeah,
it
not
was
good.
Totally. And actually, for a lot of those guys in reality. But
across the board,
put McLean at short, put Elly in center, put Friedel in left, keep Marte in right.
Marte at right, but especially at third.
Who's your first baseman? Who's the first baseman? Stewart.
Spencer Steer last year, statistically, from a defensive standpoint, was phenomenal at first base last year. From the advanced analytics tell you, he did. He was a Gold Glove finalist. He was a Gold Glove finalist at first base.
Oh yeah. Well, okay, have Stewart train behind him because Stewart can still play some third,
but
not as effectively. He's not going to replace the guy they got from Pittsburgh.
I mean, that guy's he's the best defense. I mean, Brian Hayes is the best third baseman in baseball defensively.
Oh yeah,
he's the best.
I don't care if he hits 200.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like,
everybody else got hit 260.
So if the Reds do go pull the trigger, and I doubt that they do, but if they do go get Marte, from the Diamondbacks, and they pull that off, I think that's pretty phenomenal, because if you have Brian Hayes at third, you have Marte at second, and Ellie, even with his flaws at short, that's the most athletic middle infield of any team in baseball. Now, is it the best? I don't know, but I would love that. So the other guy they're looking at, Mike, is the second baseman, Brandon Lowe, over at the Rays. I'm assuming it would take less to get Lowe than it would to get Marte, and I wouldn't be surprised if Lowe ends up being the guy that they pull the trigger on.
Okay, what do you know offhand what his averages are, like batting and stuff like that?
For the kid from the A's? No, I do not. Let me go.
No. The guy you said from the Rays, right? Lowe?
Yeah, Lowe from the Rays, yes.
I have no idea what his averages, his stats are, stuff like that, because that's important to me.
I mean, that's important to the Reds and everybody. I mean, yeah, I think it's just good, yeah. But as far as Lowe goes, again, Josh Lowe, like last year, as far as that's concerned, he hit 220 last year. This guy has Reds written all over him, Mike. This guy has Reds written all over him.
Timeout. Stop. 220.
220.
Stop. Forget it. Yeah. I don't want any parts of it.
He hit 220.
270. I'll be happy.
Yeah, but he hit 220 with 11 home runs and 40 RBIs. Mike, he's as good as a Red.
What's that doing for me?
No, it ain't doing anything. But that's what I'm saying. He's as good as a Red. That's the problem. And so yeah, because I'm with you. They it's embarrassing. So Marte for the Diamondbacks. Oh my gosh, he hit 283, hit 28 home runs.
That'd be a gold mine.
Yes, I would love him. And if you have to ultimately give up, Hunter Green. Now let me ask you, to get Ketel Marte from the Diamondbacks, you're having to give up Hunter Green. I don't see how you would have. I don't see how you would not have to.
I don't agree there. They got enough talent in their system, pitching wise. They can give up a couple of prospects who are close and keep Hunter. I know Hunter. I love Hunter. His mom and dad are two of the most impressive people I've ever met in my life, and I'm 71 years old. But anyway, I keep Hunter. I want to see Hunter healthy all year.
Yeah, but he's never been healthy any year. That's been the concern. It's not one year. He has been on the IL every year.
I'll give him one more year. Well, they still have him for another, 2 years, 3 years? Isn't it to 28?
I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah. They still have him for another 3 years. They have him for another
to 29.
So
28. Well, either way. So you keep him, but there's other guys they could trade. There's a lot of them. They're loaded in pitching.
But hey, you know what? I just came across this. I find this hilarious. I don't know why, but breaking news: On3 Sports and others have reported that Michigan has just fired their head coach, Sharon Moore.
Really?
Unless I just got on Facebook, yes.
See, I stay off Facebook. I'm sorry.
Well, this is the old Twitter machine. This is the old X machine. Wow.
Yeah.
Michigan.
Fired Michigan coach.
They fired him. Interesting. All right. Well, hey, I appreciate the call as always, Grandpa.
I appreciate the time. I know this is the longest we've ever talked together. I'll be in touch. My Ravens suck.
Oh, yeah. What's going on there?
God only knows, buddy. Lamar's not healthy. I don't know what the hell's wrong with him, but he's not healthy.
Yeah, I need.
There's no way.
I'm pulling for the Ravens this week. The only reason I can make it as a Browns fan is Joe Burrow and the Bengals suffering, and the Bengals fan suffering. So that's how how do you cope as a Browns fan? When the Bengals suffer, I feel much better. That's how I get through the Browns being what they are. So there you go. But I got to dive into this Jerome Moore stuff, Grandpa Mike. I got to jump off this.
You do.
Yes,
but
sir.
You be safe, because I'll be on the road for the next few days. I'll talk to you later.
Take care. Be safe traveling. 937-518-1410. Sharon Moore, out of there. Oh, man, Michigan turning a new leaf. They decided, hey, you know what? We need just good, honest people running our program. What the heck happened? We'll be right back. Sharon Moore, Michigan, fires their head football coach.
Only at Target. Restrictions apply.
Thank you for calling Michigan Tech Support. For stolen signs, press 1. For mysteriously dropped headset communications, press 2. For a cheating scandal that Michigan hasn't been caught for yet, press 3. You know what? Please hold.
The Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. Now, back to the Justin Kinner Show on 1410 ESPN Radio and on the stream at wingam.com.
I didn't follow those prompts correctly. I didn't hear them say for firing their head coach. Press 3. I mean, what the heck is going on? We welcome you back. It's the Justin Kinner Show. So this is breaking news. It just happened about less than 20 minutes, half hour ago. This is just according to a quick write-up on ESPN. There's more from On3 and others. But apparently, as we sit here right now, that team up north has officially fired their head coach, Sharon Moore. Michigan has fired coach Sharon Moore. Sources told ESPN's Pete Thamel, Dan Wetzel, and Adam Schefter. Adam Schefter, I'm tired of seeing his name pop up in college stuff. Like, he drives me up the wall. Adam Schefter, please just butt out. Like, ESPN there's so many really talented college football reporters out there. I have no clue why this egomaniac has to be involved in breaking news for college, but whatever. I know he's a Michigan guy. Adam Schefter is, so, whatever. But he does this all the time, and it irritates me. But let me reset here. According to ESPN's Pete Thamel, Dan Wetzel as well, Adam Schefter, and others, Michigan has fired head coach Sharon Moore. Michigan went 9-3 this past season, finished ranked 18th in the college football playoff rankings. Overall, finished 18-8 as the team's coach after replacing Jim Harbaugh. Now, again, there's more that's coming out that, again, fired for cause for an inappropriate relationship with the staff member. So that was the write-up from ESPN. Nick Schultz with On3. This is the write-up that has a little bit more details. Says that Sharon Moore has been fired as the Michigan head coach, according to Pete Nakos with On3. He took over for Jim Harbaugh back in 24, led the Wolverines to 18-8 record in the full-time role, of course. Now, it goes on to talk about, Michigan and Moore moving on and having to, basically, like, the bottom line is, I'm sorry, I'm trying to skim through this, and you could tell I'm just filling time, just trying to find where in this article, as I just pulled it up as I went live, to be able to give more details on this. But it doesn't matter because they're also preparing for their Citrus Bowl matchup against Texas coming up on December 31st. I'll be surprised if Michigan doesn't back out of this bowl game. It's not like it's a playoff game where it has to be played. I'm curious to see if Michigan and Texas still goes down, which means there's still an opportunity for the crybaby Fighting Irish to say, hey, we'll take this game for you, but nonetheless, guys, this is crazy. I don't know all the details. I'm sorry. I know this is a bad segment. I came back with not all the information. I just come across the article, just heard the news. So as I'm pulling it up, it's giving a lot of fluff in there, just about, where he played football, this stuff. There's nothing in there. All that's coming out on Twitter is that it was an inappropriate relationship with the staff member. I don't want to speak out of turn on that. I don't know what the details of that inappropriate relationship with the staff member are, but I will say it does appear, just from speculation on my end, just from sitting back looking in, things at Michigan haven't been going well. I mean, even when they won a national championship, they couldn't enjoy it. And I'm not here to I'm not here to stir the pot with this. The reason Michigan fans had every right to be so pissed off is because they couldn't truly enjoy being a fan of their team winning a national championship because the entire thing was made a mockery of because of the cheating scandal. And we can get into what they were found guilty of, what they did not do. If everyone else does it, I don't give a damn. The bottom line is nobody views that outside of Michigan country as a legit national championship. Nobody, like, no one respects it. There's just too much that came out that made it feel icky, if you will. All right. And Michigan fans had to deal with people like me, had to deal with Buckeye fans, had to deal with any fan out there that wasn't a Michigan fan saying, yeah, congratulations, cool national championship, dude. But there's an asterisk next to it. Whether you put it there or not, it doesn't matter. Nobody respects it. Last year, Ohio State wins a national championship. And to me, not to me, to anyone, they did it the right way. They fought through adversity. They didn't have to resort to cheating. They didn't have to resort to some scheme. It was just hard-nosed football. put the loss against Michigan for the 4th straight year behind you, turn your nose towards Tennessee, and go run through the playoff. Like, it felt good to be a fan of a team that won a national championship. Michigan fans can't say that. They can't say that. And it's been a roller coaster of emotions over the last 5 years when it comes to this program, with all the cheating scandal, with Harbaugh bailing on the NFL, Sharon Moore taking over, but there's still the black cloud that hovers over that program. And let's be clear, I thought they had a get-out-of-jail-free card originally, and I thought that Sharon Moore had a great opportunity going to get the quarterback that they did. I thought, man, this is a great opportunity for them. To really kind of turn the corner. Sharon Moore with the quarterback that they had, right? When you go get Bryce Underwood, that was a humongous deal because Michigan with Harbaugh, they won a lot of games with some okay quarterbacks. They won a lot of games with quarterbacks that technically underachieved. And I know J.J. McCarthy won a national championship, but it's not like he was the sexiest quarterback out there. Like he didn't look good throwing the football as well as some other, elite quarterbacks in college football did. Now, I know he ended up getting drafted in the top 10, but we all see how much of a nightmare that's turning out to be. Bryce Underwood was an opportunity for Sharon Moore to grab college football by the throat and go in a different direction. The team would look different. It would feel different, but they'd still be winning, and they would be shedding themselves from the negative spotlight that was there when, of course, Harbaugh was there. My problem with the Sharon Moore hire, and this isn't Michigan hate, this isn't Ohio State fan, Michigan made a mistake hiring Sharon Moore and making him the head coach post Harbaugh, because what they should have done was completely separated themselves from anything Harbaugh cheating scandal related. Even to this day, we still look at Sharon Moore and say, yeah, I still see and feel the Harbaugh cheating era. I can't respect you because of that. And if I was Sharon Moore back in the day, I know it's tough to get a D1 college job, but let's not act like Sharon Moore would not have gotten an opportunity somewhere. If I'm Sharon Moore, I would not have even taken that job, because he had to have known that the unknown of what was to come down, the hammer that could have potentially come down, and it wasn't a hammer. It was maybe a little, one of the little plastic hammers, a little toy hammer. It wasn't even anything, but he didn't know that at the time. I mean, he really risked being raked over the coals, and that's basically what happened anyways. My point of all of this is you had Bryce Underwood. You had an opportunity to reset. They didn't get better as the season went on, and I think that he's an expensive coach to get out of that deal with. So I think when it's all said and done, it's just one of those where they had to make an executive decision, and they fired him for cause, but they found cause. They found cause, and I think that's what's interesting about all of this is, if they're winning games, whatever this inappropriate relationship with the staff member is or whatever, I guarantee you the school overlooks it. But because you're losing, we want to get you the hell out of here. It was the same thing with Michigan State a few years ago. I just hate when schools do this, because when coaches like this are doing crazy stuff, the schools pretend to not have a problem with it if you're winning. But now they're morally outraged. That's why I was really expecting LSU to find something really bad on Brian Kelly, because I thought that they were going to do the whole, hey, we're firing Brian Kelly for cause now because we found something that we really weren't upset with during his time here. But now that we're looking to get out of having to pay him, this is what we found. I don't know any more information than what's out there. For those watching on Facebook and YouTube, I apologize. The camera just died on me. I must not have this plugged in right, but it doesn't matter. We only have a couple minutes left. Let's go to Shaw. Shaw, I know you're a Michigan fan. How you feeling? How you feeling about this?
Shocked. There's been rumors now for a couple weeks that something was coming down the pipe. We were told from all the beat writers and everything that it was just hearsay and it wasn't true, but the smoke was getting, the fire was becoming hotter and hotter and hotter. The avalanche was coming bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the news came out today. It was actually, I don't know. I'd seen something on one of the boards that he was already fired earlier in the day, and it took until now to come out. But yeah, I don't know. Shocked. Don't know where they're going to go, because it was Matt Campbell's job. I don't know.
That is weird timing. Yeah. I mean, and I think Matt Campbell.
Yeah.
Hey, how about Kerry Combs, baby? I mean, special teams coach. Going to get the Ohio State guy, No, look, this is weird. By the way, real quick, sorry, Shaw, on this, where are you at? Like, I feel like And again, I don't know the details of how inappropriate this is it just deemed inappropriate because you're not allowed to, obviously have a relationship with coworkers, or is this a thing that they're not really morally outraged by, but they were looking for a reason to get out from this? We say that there's nothing out there, but what if there is something out there? What if they have found something they like and they don't want to risk not getting it? The timing seems weird unless that there really are morally outraged by this inappropriate relationship, according to sources.
From what I'm hearing up there, this is something that could have got back at the university if they didn't fire him.
Oh, well, why didn't they just continue to support him? That's what they do. No, in all seriousness. Yeah. And so this might be a legit bad thing. Like like a Mel Tucker thing.
So
accusations. No, and I don't want to use the phrase, but like it could be potential accusations, not just he had a relationship with somebody. It could be accusations. Is what this could maybe be.
All of it. I mean, yes is my answer to everything you just asked. Like it could be all of it. It could be allegations. It could be that they found that he actually was doing some things he shouldn't have been doing with a staff member. And by the way, he is married and has kids. And it's ugly. It's not going to look good at all. I mean, it already doesn't look good at all. But moving forward, moving this a little bit forward, it's very interesting because now the transfer portal is open for Michigan and everybody can leave. And that's the interesting part. That means Underwood, that means all of them. And they just had a very decent recruiting class come in. Now, what does that mean? So once again, Michigan's in shambles while Ohio State is running off to a national championship, possibly. And they're just making leaps and bounds while Michigan's falling further and further behind. It's the 2010s all over again. So
I have no clue what they do here. I can't even think of a name that's out there. I mean, damn. The Brian. I mean, you're not going to go Brian, but and that's not a terrible. By the way, not a horrible hire, but it won't feel good because it'll feel like you're just forcing it versus whatever. Brian Kelly's a name. Chip Kelly. One of the Kellys. I don't know. I have no clue.
Out of that bunch, I'd rather go Brian, but I really don't want Brian either. I don't know. And the thing about it is we're about to find out if what everybody up there always says. Well, the Michigan football coach comes open. It's one of the top 10 coaches, and anybody will take it. Well, we're about to find out because I didn't know of any other names that were in the carousel that were worth a darn. And most of the other coaches that you would have wanted have already signed somewhere. Now, I mean, I guess we're about to find out what this money really is worth, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, and you're going to hear the typical. You'll hear the Sabans. I've never believed the Urban thing, but Urban's always been, Urban apparently had this list, and Michigan was secretively on it. Now, this is well before he got the Ohio State job, of course, but,
right.
Who knows? By the way, there were so many big jobs that opened up. LSU, Florida. I mean, Penn State's a big job. I wouldn't take Penn State over Michigan, but Penn State was available before Michigan. So you're right. We're going to find out, because it could be whoever coach takes this next job, it could be someone that's currently employed at the moment and they never thought about potentially leaving, but now it seems like a possibility. So who knows what's going to happen. Maybe Harbaugh comes back. Oh, no, he can't.
No, that's not happening. We do know that. We do know that.
But all right,
NCAA's made that perfectly clear.
But I went over.
You're up against it.
So, all right, Shaw, appreciate you. And I'm not letting you get a go blue in there for that one. But for those of you who just tuned in, yes, Michigan has fired Sharon Moore with cause. Inappropriate relationship with a staff member. We don't know the details. We'll know more on tomorrow's show. All right. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning in. We'll do this again tomorrow. Until tomorrow, it's been the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers.